Just how long can Johnny Infantino stay in power? We make new era MLS predictions, plus we dot the map of the American soccer landscape. That and more on today's edition of Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick, the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American landscape. How you doing? Hope you're well. My name, Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, my partner's back in the chair in a different location, radio soccer guy, Jason Davis. How you feeling?
Yeah, I've decamped to the Puerto Rican studios of Morning Kick Around, otherwise known as my in-laws' house here in Toa Baja, Puerto Rico. Thanks to everybody who stepped up on Wednesday. Thanks to Mitch for stepping up on Wednesday to fill in for me. Who knows what other times we might need fill-in guests while I am visiting my my in-laws in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. Got to get the 5-year-old some time with Abuela. You know how this goes, Rob. Like grandma time is the best time. So I'm glad to be back, though, and I see a lot of our friends are here in the building on a Wednesday. I'm sorry, on a Friday. See, this is how I got messed up. It's on Friday. Mr. Bob started. Mr. Bob was not only first through the door, not only did he stake his claim to the #1 spot on the rankings for timeliness, he also gifted 10 memberships already. So shout out to Mr. Bob. Thank you so much. In fact, probably deserves throwing out a clanger.
Starting Friday off with a thing.
Yes, got to start off with a clang on a Friday. So thank you to Mr. Bob for doing that. He wants to mention that we want to get to 10,000 memberships. 10,000 subscribers. About 10,000 members would be incredible. 10,000 subscribers before Kickathon 2 back in the Kickathon on September 12th. We have Armando in the building. Shout out to my guy, Armando. But Mr. Bob with an update or mentioning something about the plan to build a stadium in Albuquerque for New Mexico United. And we're going to come back around because you and I, Rob, did a whole segment or 2 segments, rather, 2 different days. We took on the idea of who might make the USL premier roster to start Division I for USL. When that gets off the ground, New Mexico United mentioned heavily, and we'll talk about that. Kate is here. Happy Friday to Dwayne, to Hick and Time, who also we'll get back to her in a second, to McDuff up there in New England, Jeff, Seneca Rocker, Dub V, our guy. Nathan is here. Jason is here. I love a good Jason. Best name on the planet. Thank you so much. John is in the bit. Do you know what Jason means, Rob, in Greek? I don't know if it's like we all say Jason. It's probably not probably not the original Greek pronunciation. I believe it means healer. You know Jason and the Argonauts, though, right?
I'm familiar with that. Yeah. So you're healing us with your Dorset soccer commentary.
That's what we're doing. There we go. Callan Rees, Jack Thornby. Who else is here? Chris Sow is here. Hick and Time got us to 15 memberships today already between Mr. Bob and Hick. He gets a clang too, right? We
clang him out.
We clang. Good clanging.
If you were sleepy on Friday morning, we've woken you up.
That's right. That's right. If you're on the West Coast watching us, thank you for your commitment, and now you are awake. Soccer Night in Detroit. Shrimper Steve over in the UK. Yuri is here as well. All right, that's a great roster of people to start the morning, Rob. I know we've got topics. What other business should we mention before we dive into the meat of the show?
You mentioned we are doing Kickathon, the Kickening in September. So excited about that when you come back from your travels. Ahead of that, we are trying to make some new designs for the MK store over there on 4th. While we got Morning Kick on t-shirts, hoodless sweatshirts, Bob mugs, as I am prominently sipping from here today. But we need new designs.
Yeah, we got. Well, first of all, we need an actual Mr. Bob. I know that's the mug we made because Mr. Bob asked for a mug, and therefore he is the originator of the mug. But we need a mug that says Mr. Bob on it. Otherwise, it's not a Mr. Bob mug, if you understand my logic.
Oh yeah, I fair. I be like Bob mug, more like,
Be
right?
like Bob. Be like Tulsa Mario as well, who is here, and my friend, my friend from Puerto Rico, who's obviously repping for Tulsa, Oklahoma these days. Give that man a good old clang as. Oops, I clicked on the wrong one. You get the
I like
bongo.
that.
You get the
That's a good way to get going in the morning.
all
Morning
right.
bongo.
Morning bongo for Tulsa Mario. All right. That's good stuff. I love that. Thank you, hermano. Thank you very much. All right. Muchas gracias. Mil gracias to Tulsa Mario for getting us to 20. I set the target at 20. We've already hit it within the first 5 minutes of the show.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely awesome. Thank you guys for chipping in there today. We have some great segments on the show today. We're gonna make some predictions for the Larry Berg era of May soccer. We are going to dip into some of the commentary and the reaction from our USL Premier Splation segments, and get into a few more things. But before we start, though, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and do anything you can to share with friends that you feel may enjoy the program. Give a little bit more support in your heart and maybe in your wallets. Become an MK Ultra. A couple bucks a month gets priority comments on screen during live shows. You get bonus content as well as access to the morning kick around disc server. And then something we do on Fridays as well is we dot the map of our channel members, and we've got a Google map of all of our MK Ultras point. We're creeping on 2 years doing this show, and that map is filling up. We've got at least one more to add today. So if you are accepting any of these gift memberships, those last for a month. Note that, but also either the comment section here, leave a little location. What's your city and your favorite teams, and we'll get him on the map. And we do that at the end of the show on days. Is there anything else before we get to the show?
No, I think that's it. We've got a lot to cover. I know. Again, want to come back and talk about the topic of the week on this show, which is that USL Premier thing, and I'm excited to talk about what MLS has coming next with Larry Berg in charge.
And we're going to kick it all off next with the very tip of the top of the game. Will the FIFA president in power? First up here on Morning Kicker. As it stands at time of show on the morning of August 7th, Gianni Infantino is still the FIFA president, but how long will that last? Looks like the president of the Global Football Federation is clinging on to power and rally his allies and try to save himself from probably one of the biggest fall from graces and self-destructions of a powerful figure in recent memory.
Yeah, this is a guy who will not go willingly, will he? He is going to hang on. He is going to claw and scrape and try to do everything he can to avoid giving up his spot. And I don't know how much you and Mitch covered on Wednesday of this, Rob, but there was a statement issued by FIFA after Monday's meeting in Rabat, Morocco, which, by the way, produced a rumor that Gianni Infantino had promised Morocco the World Cup final in 2030 for their vote to maintain him as president of FIFA. FIFA issued a statement that basically was like, we pulled back on everything. Nobody can be mad anymore. We didn't actually break any rules, but even if we did, we're not going to listen to any criticism. Thank you for your time. We're moving forward.
And I just pictured like Tim Robson, like when he tries to open the door the wrong way, but he won't admit that he tried to open the door the wrong way and just try to struggle.
Yeah.
And force his way.
It's very funny that again, this is what cornered animals do, is what Gianni Infantino is engaged in right now. I'm seeing that the Norwegian FA, the president of that federation, is calling for him to resign.
I think UEFA, the English FA might have as well.
Maybe that would be a big one. Obviously, UEFA in general is not yet backing down. Now, could they back down, Rob, from their position of boycott the World Cup? Yes, they absolutely could. And remember, everything is a negotiation. So
yeah.
even if we're like, oh, look at UEFA, they're standing up to Johnny. First of all, UEFA aren't the good guys. Let's be clear. UEFA are not the good guys. They're just the less bad guys in this situation. So when you have Seferin and UEFA rattling their saber about boycotting a World Cup, that's a big deal. And even if Johnny has the vote, because 211 member associations, he only needs one more than half to remain president, is my understanding. Even if he has the votes from Oceania and the AFC and CONMEBOL, which isn't very big, doesn't have many members, but definitely seems to be on board with 64 teams at the World Cup and all those things. Even if Johnny gathers enough votes to stay in power, if UEFA does actually boycott, I mean, if it looks like they're boycotting, if they get to the point of, yeah, seriously, guys, we're boycotting. Yeah, we ain't playing in this thing. Who sticks around for the World Cup in 20? Who remains on Johnny's side if the World Cup doesn't have Spain and France and England and Germany and the nations that bring in, not only bring in the money, but provide the legitimacy to the World Cup? That's not a legitimate World Cup. I know, like, I don't know, how old are you, Rob? Are you old enough to remember or know about the Olympics where things were boycotted because of the Cold War? You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
I heard stories of it. I wasn't quite live and a sports fan at that point, but I do remember the boycott ruined a lot of, or definitely hindered a lot of athletic careers.
well, it's not only that, it's like the US would clean up at the Olympics when the Russians and all of their allies in the Warsaw Pact boycotted the Olympics. And it's like, yeah, look at all the gold medals. And it's like, yeah, but like all the other good athletes didn't post because they boycotted. Yeah. So, you know, we cannot imagine a World Cup without UEFA. So that is, to me, the key to all of this. And as of yesterday, UEFA's member nations had announced the decision to boycott all FIFA tournaments in the immediate aftermath of the World Cup privatization plans. UEFA's associations were very clear about the conditions attached to the non-participation in FIFA competitions, UEFA said in a statement. First, the proposals to sell off the major competitions had to be withdrawn. And secondly, assurances have to be made that such attempts to disfigure the game in this way will never be made again. These conditions have not been met. In addition, UEFA made it abundantly clear in its statement on Saturday that it has lost confidence in Gianni Infantino's presidency. That position holds. And I don't know why you would believe that Johnny, just because he says he won't do it again, won't do it again. First of all, and I do think this is troubling framing a little. Like, I recognize I'm walking into some dangerous territory here, but the way some of these FAs have responded to Johnny, the fact that the general secretary made a statement about, we didn't know about any of this, and Johnny was doing shady stuff behind our backs, and I don't like him. And then as of Monday, after the meeting in Morocco, was like, yeah, we're on board. Totally fine. Johnny can be president. He can continue on. It's like, is this like, I know people are getting their back scratched. That's part of what this is, but it is an abuser relationship. Like, this is an abusive relationship some of these FAs and the world of football seems to have with Gianni Infantino.
Yeah, so some of the allies that have rallied to Infantino's side, according to a story that came out this morning from Reuters, is the Mexican Federation backing the president. Norwegian football, like you said, claiming or calling for Infantino's resignation. And then support is at odds in some regional and national confederations, but also, guess what? The Argentinian FA also offers its support to President Infantino. How about that?
Yeah, I don't think, again, this is going to be easy. He is dug in. He's got enough of these federations on his side because of the blatant corruption, right? The quid pro quo, I'm going to give you a bunch of cash if you side with me. And he does it so openly. Now, FIFA did, in that statement I mentioned, say that the Morocco rumor was not true, but we all believe it because it's Gianni Infantino. Of course he would make that promise. Of course he would. And again, if you think he's already crossed the line, there should be no reason to believe that he's suddenly going to be a good boy. And of course, part of the problem here is that the power of the presidency at FIFA is out of whack with what it should be. And maybe there'll be adjustments down the line. But, without complete reorganization, man, it is real tough.
These won't be the straw that broke the camel's back, but also there's been a lot of anecdotes and stories about just how Johnny was operating during the World Cup, which is notable, using federations ticket allotments and kind of like being gifted them, and then Infantino using them to invite VIPs to corral them, and kind of using tickets as kind of like both chip and a little bit of like bribery in there as well. And so that kind of just like he'll use anything for the leverage to get into the room that he wants, and to sit with the people.
Yeah, there. If you're interested in sort of the shenanigans and the chicanery, is that the right word? The nonsense that has gone on around the ticket stuff. I know we've had our guy Travel Football Fan on the show a number of times during the World Cup period, leading up to the World Cup and in the World Cup period. I suggest you go find Evan Sutton, Sutton, as well. He and I have been in communication, haven't been able to get him on the show, but he is absolutely out there chronicling and tracking some of the exactly what you're talking about, Rob, where the ticket allotments have disappeared and gone in this direction, and the way things are being manipulated in order to bring more money into FAs, which again, as long as Johnny Infantino allows for this to happen, or maybe even encourages it, every federation has one vote. There's no weighted votes. This is not a committee of 12. It is every country has one vote. And when you have that kind of scenario, it begs for corruption for people who have no compunction and no morals about it in order to maintain their power. And again, Johnny is also in this position. And who knows what happens in Switzerland, but Johnny's also in this position where if he loses his job, if he is ousted as FIFA president, he is now suddenly in jeopardy. It's not, I'm not comparing him to the president of the United States, who is immune from prosecution around certain things, but there definitely is going to be more of an appetite to go after Johnny for some of the stuff he's done and been partied to. And again, maybe he doesn't go to jail, but maybe he is sued into oblivion. Maybe he is sent to the hinterlands essentially in football, which would be that would be a life sentence for him in the way that, you know, he wants to be part of the game. He wants to be attached to all of this stuff. And here he is doing these bad things.
Yeah. Familiar situation, either president or jail. It's the two scenarios. like some folks that he spends his time with, and then it's still wild, confounding that he seems to be such a master manipulator, guided this whole thing for years to play out in favor and in FIFA's favor. And then for this last step, this announcement of this big next thing to come out in such a way is just surprising, because he seemed to have been kind of pulling all the strings along the way. And it's kind of wild how the release of this big privatization effort kind of fell and got a little bit of egg on his face, and now he's instead of lording over everything, he's trying to hold on to his position where he's at. But we're gonna move along, and before we do to Tim, right as we were transitioning in the set, he gifted 5 more memberships. So big thanks to Tim, and I think we've blown past our pre-show goals for the memberships. So keep those coming. And thank you so much for the support. And we're going to move right along, talk a little bit of new era Major League Soccer next up here in Morning Kick Around. MLS has a new incoming commissioner, their third ever. Mr. Larry Berg from LAFC won the, I don't know if you win the title, is going to assume the title of commissioner. And before the era fully begins, we've heard some words from him and some, welcoming comments. But we're going to kind of go out on a limb here and make some era predictions. What is ahead for the third ever commissioner?
Yeah. So, by the way, if you're like third ever commissioner, Doug Logan, Don Garber, Larry Berg, not Larry Bird, Larry Berg.
I was
Okay.
trying to come up with a Magic Johnson comparison with the Fox executive that he beat, but it just never came to mind because Berg versus Magic era, but it didn't come up. But before we actually got into the predictions, I wanted to ask, was Garber's era too long? And if so, what would have been the natural step away point in his very long tenure?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I can go back in time and go, he should have stepped away here, he should have stepped away there. I think everything is about the replacement, right? This is true in football management as well. It's like, hey, we got to fire that coach. And it's like, okay, fire that coach. Who are you going to get to replace him? If you don't have somebody
That's Potch,
better,
right? That's where we were with Potch.
if you don't have somebody better, is it really the best thing to do to fire that person? Now, Garber is not getting fired. Garber is stepping aside. He kept getting new contracts. Why did he keep getting new contracts? Because he did what the owners wanted him to do. And he was able to balance the things that come with the job. And namely, those are being the spokesperson, mouthpiece, and not a decision maker, but a decision presenter in America, in Major League Soccer. And I think because, and look, Garber got a lot of criticism, particularly in the first half or three quarters of his run when MLS was still sort of ramping up. And we, obviously we can debate whether things are good for MLS or MLS thrived under Garber's leadership. Words matter, and it gets kind of tricky. Like, what's the right word? For some people, they thrived. They built stadiums. They got TV deals that were remarkable, even if they ultimately did not deliver what they had hoped. Lots of things moved forward in MLS. Academies got launched, things of that nature, right? Like, things happened under Don Garber's leadership that it is undeniable are good things for MLS. Now, not all of them are good things maybe for American soccer, depending on how you view that. And everybody's got their own little corner of the game that they care most about. If you care most about organic growth of clubs, MLS is not your bag. If you care most about, I don't know, like lack of influence by big professional teams with money on the youth game in certain places, MLS is probably not your bag. There are things, right? Again, single entity, competition format, promoting a parity within the league, right? Those things, not all those things make people happy. But I think if you take the overall picture, Don Garber had an incredible run and did a very good job balancing, as I said, the instincts of the more conservative group of MLS owners, some of whom are the originators of MLS. Remember, and I'm not saying that you wish away all of his other sins because of this, but Don Garber saved MLS in 2002 when the league was on the doorstep.
Money saved him, and then he helped the money.
Well, no, he brokered the deal that got people like Anschutz and Kraft and Hunt into rooms and on phone calls so that they could keep the league going in the aftermath of the collapse of everything. And 9/11 was a factor here. They closed down the two Florida teams, right? All of that happened around. There is reporting on this. There are oral histories on this. There was like a meeting at Anschutz's ranch or something. And it was like literally original MLS owners going, shut it down. We're losing a ton of money. This isn't going to work. American soccer can't work here. Not this level. And Garber said, well, what if we do this? What if we shuffle this team here and that team there? And we kill off the two Florida teams and we cut budget and all those. And they said, okay, fine, Don. We'll give you one shot to make this work. And here we are in 2026. And the league has 30 teams. And it's got soccer-specific stadiums built all over the country. And it has vibrant fan bases and all those things. Like, the only way to view MLS as a failure under Don Garber's leadership is if you have been consistently raising the bar to make sure he always comes up short or the league always comes up short, which, again, I understand ambition and desire for something to go higher, but I think it's unfair to Garber and it's unfair to MLS to say that any of this has been bad in the big sense. Individual choices, specific things, the way the league handled the Open Cup recently obviously upsets a lot of people, Rob, right?
For good reason.
No, now Larry Berg, and the one major difference here is that Don Garber took the job as MLS commissioner not being a soccer guy. not being a guy who had soccer in his blood, right? If we talk about it that way, he didn't grow up with the game. He wasn't even really significantly a fan in 1999 when he got the job.
No,
he was just an NFL executive that some of the owners who were NFL owners knew and liked and thought could do a good job building American soccer, building MLS specifically. Okay. He had been in charge of NFL Europe, Rob.
it's a good differentiator. What you said was good for MLS rather than doing good for soccer. I agree with that.
Sure. That is important to mention, right? Yes. And let's be clear. That was Don Garber's remit, to build MLS or to do good by MLS. If American soccer came along for the ride in the general sense, great. If not, yeah, and that's going to bother a lot of people, right? And we want this to all be kumbaya, and we're all in it together, and we're building American soccer, and everybody's got to look out for one another. But unfortunately, and I say this because this is America, business interests trump almost everything. So when you're talking about what's good for soccer, that's going to come in second to what's good for MLS when you're talking about owners who are investing millions of dollars and will not continue down the road of running the league or investing in the league. Okay? Now, again, Don Garber was not a soccer guy. Larry Berg is. Grew up with the game, cares about the game, invested in LAFC, helped turn LAFC into one of the most successful teams on the continent, right? And
yeah, and in his statements, he was talking about getting signed up to play as a kid, and he had stories about his dad getting introduced into soccer and all that, which we literally never had once from Don.
Absolutely. Larry Berg is a soccer guy. And maybe this is the moment the league needs a soccer guy. Like, it needs somebody that does live the game a little bit more. Now, he's already said, if you're wondering, he's already said he doesn't see pro rel as something that will work for MLS. And I'm not saying that he even said, Don always said never say never or anything's possible. He said, I'll leave that out there, but. So yeah. I'm not going to sit here with our predictions for the Larry Berg era, which are very early, very speculative. We have very little to go on. All we know is his time at LAFC and the fact that he won over the owners, who are a mix of people who are ambitious and want to go spend a bunch of money to become a top 5 league in the world, and those who don't, or those who are less willing to spend the money necessary to get there. When we're talking about speculative predictions, Rob, my first one is, and this is not huge, but I think based on what we're seeing right now, based on the calendar switch, which is already coming, the Leagues Cup is going to die. Or it's going to change so substantially it won't resemble what we've got right now. That is my number one prediction.
That's an interesting take. And I agree with, just because on Wednesday Mitch and I were lamenting about the slow pace of the decision making. If you could pick apart the failures, and this probably wasn't even Don's, but it's the owners being slow. But we could be entering in this new calendar and a whole new era for Major League Soccer. But instead, we spill out of the World Cup into the All-Star break and then into a leagues cup. And I think that Leagues Cup seemed forgotten about after everything that's happened. And it kind of just seems like spilling into random competition. It's to see some games in Mexico, but you to make it a legitimate competition. In my mind, you have to have it, even home and away between the teams, or at least have it be
it's not legitimate.
Share,
it's not legitimate. I
if it's 100% in one country, but then just like, where does it fit in the grand scheme of things? And like you said, you got to completely redo it if you're going to keep it. But obviously, we talked about Open Cup loses out because of this competition, which isn't a fully baked one either.
Yeah, it's important to remember it takes two to tango in this Leagues Cup scenario. So I don't know whose idea it was originally, but then we go to, okay, this thing is happening. And again, it was a group thing to start. Now they're doing some weird league. They've changed it enough. They've tweaked it. And MLS does like to tweak, but they've tweaked it enough that it makes you think, well, if they keep changing the formula, they don't see enough from this, or it's not working. And I don't just mean in terms of the popularity of the competition, because I think you could argue that it is still a net positive for MLS and Liga MX in terms of visibility and the money that's coming in and all those things. But in terms of the calendar, and once the calendar switch is over, I don't know what that means. Right now, Liga MX teams are just starting their season. Do they want to be doing this at the very beginning of the Apertura? And then Major League Soccer will be just starting its season, or getting ready to start its season, actually, at this time next year. So do you squeeze it in to that early season window in your first ever fall to spring calendar season? I don't know. That's an interesting thing. Now, that's prediction number one, Rob. What else are we predicting for the Larry Bird era of Major League Soccer?
So this prediction might come across as wish casting from what I just want to happen without knowing Mr. Berg's TV outlook. But Apple TV rules for another contract, but has a local terrestrial partnership baked in.
Local. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't considered local. I don't know that. So again, like I think in my mind, the farthest I would be willing to go with the TV prediction, and Larry Berg has said, he said what a commissioner is supposed to say, right? That there's sort of the sky is the limit here when it comes to MLS and television. And if MLS is going to grow to the level where we can put it in and slot it in among the best leagues in the world, which I do think is going to be almost impossible to do because of, again, geographic limitations, lack of access to the biggest club competition on the planet, which is the Champions League. If MLS is going to do that, it needs a massive TV deal. I don't know, and if I'm not talking NFL, but I mean, relatively speaking, it needs a very big TV deal. And after the Apple experience, I think what we're talking about, and by the way, they could have gone with David Nathanson, who was the other candidate, who is a former TV executive, somebody who has deep ties to the TV industry, and they went with Larry Berg instead, which again, his background as an LAFC owner and being part of that ownership group and the success of that club is probably a huge factor here. And again, balancing what the more conservative owners want versus what the more aggressive owners want. But he says, he has said the sky is the limit. I think this probably means a return to a linear television partnership that is deeper or something. Okay, I guess you could see this, and I know this has been speculated in other places. You could see this as sort of splitting the rights or splitting the approach to putting out MLS content or MLS games. Right now, everything's on Apple. You have to have Apple. We had the period where you had to have the MLS package. You didn't have to have Apple, but you had to have the MLS package, which confused people. What do you mean? I have Apple and I got to have an MLS package? No, you got to have the MLS package. But even promoting that was difficult. I think Apple, people would claim Apple really wasn't pushing MLS. I think they kind of did, but then now we have everything is on Apple. If you have an Apple TV membership or subscription, you get all of MLS. That is one way to lower the bar of access, but it's still on a streaming platform, which I don't think, I know they have F1 now, but I don't think people think, oh, sports, Apple. And I know that was, I didn't hate the decision at the beginning that MLS made because I think they were reading the tea leaves and they saw that things were moving towards streaming. Every sport was going to kind of end up in a streaming package somewhere. But obviously the approach and the way it was executed left a lot to be desired. So I'm thinking probably they're going to go back to something with a linear connection, a deep, a commitment like, hey, Fox, hey, ESPN, somebody give us legitimate time week to week. Maybe a game of the week is another way to go back to something like that. But also, and again, Fox has an interest in streaming. They have not only their own platform, they now own Tubi. Tubi is a free streaming platform that you can put on your smart TV. Maybe that's a place for these games to land. I think somebody else has speculated that could be a situation. Netflix is also involved in sports now and trying to stream sports, and they have the Women's World Cup next year. Netflix has the Women's World Cup next year. So I think what we're gonna see is, again, maybe not as far as the NWSL has gone, which is like 5 different partners, but something that moves MLS rights across various platforms in order to spread the word about the league. Now, again, if you're trying to be a national league, it's tough because people have to figure out where to watch that. But you've already said local. And I think the key here is that MLS remains a fairly local league that just hasn't yet broken through on the national stage in a way that people watch the NFL, for example.
Yeah, when you say internet commenters talking about, oh no, nobody watches Major League Soccer, this or that and the other, if you go one of the 30 Major League Soccer cities, fans live there. To your point, it is a local thing, just like baseball. It's like not many people watch out of town baseball teams, and many people have that burning desire to watch an out of town team. Like, I'm not here in Michigan wishing that I could watch St. Louis games week in, week out, just jiggles. Especially if I was just an average consumer of the game. But I think that I propose that, or a hope cast, or predict that the quality control still remains the same, because we can't argue that the quality through the Apple product is much better than back in the day when it was a lot of local productions, but also you get that tuned in and engaged viewership there, whether that be on like a local terrestrial television or, like you said, Tubi. I think that would be a good compromise of having that good production value, and then hopefully they can work out a way, local or the Tubi thing kind of like work together to elevate the Apple.
Well, look, again, people are going to judge this through the lens of how much money is MLS bringing in. And Larry Berg says his first job is to improve the quality of play in Major League Soccer. Now, he's the commissioner, not the decider, because the people who decide are the owners who write the checks, right? But we do have this sense, and this is pre-Larry Berg being voted in as commissioner, that MLS is going to make some rule changes to the way they spend. That'll happen around the All-Star game. I don't think that's been announced yet. But I would imagine with the calendar change, with the windows lining up, and with some of the other stuff that's happening, that MLS is going to liberalize, or at least simplify their spending rules, which will allow the quality to go up. And Larry Berg's going to be a voice in that boardroom, which is to say, hey, we've got to keep going. We've got to keep pushing. And he's going to have to, again, mollify those who don't want to spend more money, or who see their teams falling behind because they're not willing to drop the $50 million that Jorge Mas is on his salary budget. So, this is the balance. This is the job. The job is not deciding things, because that's it's, again, there has to be at least a consensus. There has to be a majority. There has to be votes. There have to be people on board to write the checks. But Larry Berg, I think if you are looking for positives here, if you're an MLS fan, is that Larry Berg has stated clearly that he wants to be somebody who helps grow the quality of the product on the field. And that should mean an advocate for spending more money on salaries.
That makes sense from the lens that they're presenting him as, and part of LAFC. You'd think that he'd be on the forefront, pushing those things forward and advocating for those. So we need another prediction, a third prediction, and I think something like the elephant in the room with Major Leagues hasn't really been touched on is expansion. Does he blow out the doors to expansion and go 40-team bonanza, or does he put the brakes on expansion and try to enrich the product on the field rather than broaden it?
Again, just to be very pedantic, will he advocate for stopping, or will he advocate for growing when they have these conversations? We know that there are still cities and ownership groups out there who would love to push their way to MLS. We know Vegas has been jockeying. Maybe that's a relocation with Vancouver. We certainly hope not. There's Phoenix and that Mesa plan. I'm sure there's 2 or 3 other cities that are escaping my mind, that are escaping my memory, that you could throw in to that pot of, they could support an MLS team. And obviously, like, when we get to USL and we talk again about the comments around our USL Premier speculation, some of those towns, Sacramento for one of them, have talked about MLS, are still angling for MLS, would love to go to MLS and sort of skip over USL Premier if possible. And if they have to be in USL Premier, obviously the USL is going to have to deal with the possibility of those teams leaving, decamping for MLS. But it's not as though the league is short on candidates. It's just a matter of, when is the league too unwieldy? I think it kind of is already. I mean, for me, 15 games a week is a lot. It's a lot of games to try to keep an eye on, or wrap your head around. And again, if the league is more local than it is national, as you described, Rob, then maybe that's less of an issue from a top-down organizational perspective. People would obviously make the claim that the reason MLS expands is to get more money in the system, because essentially you're paying off the old owners, and that is a pyramid scheme. I mean, that's just new investment. And you do ship money to people for the diluted investment that they now have as their new shareholders. I don't want to get into the motivations of the people who invest in MLS necessarily. I'm sure some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are about soccer, some of them are not. I think probably what Larry Berg will say is, okay, we can expand, but let's be strategic about it, which is, kind of not too far away from the Don Garber perspective. So I would say that, yeah, I think expansion is not going to stop. Not yet.
No. Okay. So Larry Berg going to be the third commissioner of Major League Soccer, and a couple predictions. What we think that era might bring.
Let me mention this. Brian, who is not an ultra, but I threw him up on screen anyway. Oh, no, he's an ultra.
Oh, yeah,
he's an ultra. Yeah, it's right there. It's this. Okay, my bad, Brian. Brian is saying that MLS needs smaller divisions. Larry Berg let slip in his initial comments as the newly elected commissioner something about divisions. And again, people will tell you this is not a secret. They're not announcing it yet, but it's almost a certainty that MLS will break up the league into some sort of divisional structure. In fact, we did the speculation around this when the rumors were first flying. And you can kind of imagine the geographical plan that might exist. My thing, and I'm making no prediction about this because I don't trust the owners to draw down on the level of playoffs when that's money and more ticket sales and everything else, Rob. But I would very much like to see the playoff pool be smaller, and that be a way to improve the importance of those regular season games. And this is the biggest thing, the hurdle that Larry Berg has to try to clear, that MLS has been trying to figure out for years. And I know the answer for everybody is Pro Rel, but Pro Rel is not happening. Okay, so if you want to just rage about Pro Rel being the way to fix this, you can do that. I think that is pointless because, again, Larry Berg has reiterated Pro Rel is probably not happening for MLS. So if you're not doing Pro Rel, you've got to figure out a way to format your league to incentivize teams to go for it in the regular season. That you've got to find ways to make those regular season games matter more, Rob.
Yeah, how do you make it cutthroat? How do you make every single game an absolute must-win scenario where every player is putting 111% into scrapping for every single point? And no matter how Major League Soccer, you can say that people aren't necessarily fighting for that. It's maybe their careers in every game is a kind of like a resume builder, but there's just that edge that incentivized. And yeah, like you said, if more than like around half the teams in the league, if that's the barrier, we made the playoffs is the barrier, and you're like a just over 500 team. That's not cutthroat stakes in your competition format. So what do you think of our predictions here? And what do you think will come from Larry Berg's tenure as Major League Commissioner? All right, we got plenty more to come at the end of the program. We're going to dot the map. So we got a lot of new MK Ultras just from this show alone. So get your location and your favorite teams in the chat. But first, we are going to dip into the comments of our USL Premier speculative videos. Next up here on Morning Kick Around with us.
All right, I'm back on Morning Kick Around for just a second. Let's get Rob Kerr back on the stage here because we're trying to fix his max headroom problem. If you're watching live, let's check it, Rob. How are you? How's the connection?
How am I feeling? Am I in 2026 internet, or are we still kind of like back in the day? Are we at 1.0 sort of internet's connection here?
I will say it's not fixed exactly. We'll power through. I think on your end, it's probably good on this end. Lots of max headroom mentions. This is how I know that we're in the right demographic. Max headroom getting mentioned quite a bit in the chat, and that you got to go back to the 80s, man, late 80s for max headroom. But you don't have that reference, right? Weren't in the country, maybe.
Well, I've seen it referenced on pop culture stuff. Remember when this really weird thing happened back in the 80s? And that is like an unnerving, if you guys know that story. It was kind of a cream that happened back in the day.
I don't know what you're talking. What do you say? What?
Max Headroom. The Max Headroom instance where Broken didn't is kind of pirated TV, and he had the
that was all a fake. That was all like the show. That was the show. Max Headroom was pirating in a show I think there was like kayfabe stuff happening around the marketing of it, and he was on Pepsi commercials, Max Headroom. But it was definitely like that was definitely not real. Anyway, all right, let's bring this up. I actually brought up the comments. So this is literally all our comments here from recent videos. And as you can tell, Rob, and we could have like clipped these and made them pretty and put them on screen individually.
Could have.
But I can see just based on my scroll here that pretty much everything recently has been about our speculation about USL Premier. You can see it with the little thumbnail that has the outline of the United States of America. So
I would say one of the biggest themes of the replies were, why do the stadiums have to be so big? And obviously,
yes,
PLS filtered view of like how the rules are now. We haven't heard anything about waivers or what rules they're going to be working with, or even the landscape this is going to look. So the PLS is the only kind of structure we have to approach this at time,
right? Yeah.
August of 2026. Whether that'll be different once we hear more information, we'll see. But we're working through the lens of PLS. That's why there was a lot of stadium size talk on these.
Okay. By the way, you're getting some support in the chat here from Hitman Bob, one of the council of members of the council of Bobs. And if I can get my cursor back, which I'm running 3 screens over here, guys. So Rob is talking about Channel 9 and 11 hack with some kid dressed up as Max Headroom. So somebody did a Max Headroom bit. Is that and that okay?
Yeah, that's kind of jumped on like WGN in Chicago and a couple of
places
where they had the TV for a bit.
Okay, I like it. Okay, all right, there you go. Okay, so I see some comments are coming in the chat. And by the way, if you guys have updates on things we've talked about, if you are maybe a little bit more tuned in locally than we were at the time, we'll happily include this because this is what we want. We want this to be like, oh, well, we said this city might be a USL Premier candidate or this one might not. And then people are saying, oh, well, but this is what's happening in that town. All right, that's great. So San Antonio is considering USL Premier according to a press release of today.
Oh,
says Ewan.
We're
looking at what the league is providing the teams, whether there is a TV deal. Now, I think it's important to note, and this is a difference in how. I was going to bring up a different tab, but I'll leave this alone. I was going to mention that you would never see a statement like that from an MLS team, right? You would never see an MLS team say we're looking at what the league is offering. Now, and obviously this context can't happen in MLS with USL Premier and that kind of thing. But I just want to point out that USL clubs are individually run businesses, for better or worse. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, better than MLS, worse than MLS, doesn't matter. Those are individually run businesses. So we think we threw this out there as part of our speculation. I don't remember if it was part 1 or part 2, Rob, but it was this idea that if the USL clubs don't like what USL is offering, they could run off and do their own thing. They could obviously lobby to be in different. I mean, there really is only one place for a USL championship club to go if they either want to stay where they are in terms of the hierarchy or move up, and that's MLS, and that's a huge lift, right? We know that's a massive thing. And right now, if MLS is considering expanding, will they consider San Antonio? So San Antonio is kind of locked in as to, well, we're second tier just in terms of the business, the stadium, all these other things around it. What can we do? Do we have options? And I think this is obviously USL's power in this situation, Rob. USL kind of has the only place for these clubs to go. But then again, you look at the history of American soccer, and this is why USL had clubs split off and form the old NASL 2.0, because those clubs didn't see enough from USL. They didn't like what USL was doing. They didn't see a TV deal. They didn't see the marketing. They didn't see what the league was doing for them, and they thought they could do better together. And then what happened? It all fell apart. It all fell apart because they made mistakes. There were missteps along the way, but I just want to point that out as a possibility. We could be repeating history down the line here if what USL is offering these clubs isn't good enough by their standards. So you mentioned the stadium standard. That's obviously one of the themes of these videos. My new alias 1926, I think part of the reason Sporting Jacks hasn't broken ground on their new facilities because USL has been dragging their feet a bit The plan for the new stadium is in place, and as far as they know, the land is secured. Hodges Stadium at the University of North Florida is a soccer stadium right now as well, but only 12,000. And we did show a picture, I think, of Hodges Stadium, which is one giant ass stand and then another stand on the other side with a track around it. I think it has a track around it. So that just a note on Jacksonville, Rob.
Yeah, I saw a couple like disparaging Jacksonville comments when I was scanning through this last night, but I'll go to the East Coast, to Hartford. Jeremy Z10, he's a Hart fan, and he states that the CEO of the club there, when the premiere was first announced, made a statement that the team on the team website, it stated that the state and city governments in Hartford will support and approve a 15,000 capacity expansion to Trinity Field. With that, no further public announcements have been made about it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that again. I think there's a lot of these clubs, right? Because I know there are other people. So you and also saying Sporting Jacks hasn't broken ground because they're working on permits and negotiating with neighbors, which I think we maybe have talked about on the show a little bit. There's always the NIMBYs who are like, no, we don't want traffic or whatever it is. But there's a theme in some of these too, which is, oh, they want to, but right? They want to. The club wants to, or the club has made some hint in the direction of wanting to be part of this, but it's not clear to them what's happening, and so it's kind of like, yeah, they initially said we want to be USL Premier. Like Detroit's on that list, right? I think Indianapolis is on that list, maybe, of like, oh, they're doing a thing. We want to be in that thing. But then where have we gone since then? Again, transparency-wise, we talked about this, and you referenced the fact that Simon Evans was asked, what about the press conference for US? Well, I've never been to a press conference for USL. What are you talking about? It's not a thing.
Not even a conference call. I mean,
yes,
you can have like a small pool. You could have, hand pick, your handful of guys that you like in the media landscape of the biggest outlets like The Athletic and whatnot, and just have at least a few minutes of a Q&A so some of these things can be picked through. They Seneca Rocker WV hit a nail on the head. I even thought this when we're making the video, and it came up in comments. Is Pro Rel more than D1? Should they be getting promotion and relegation going first and then start at the top? It seems like maybe start doing a top-down thing. Maybe not the correct stepping stones to this. It's worth consideration at the very least.
Yeah, I think they see USL Premier and a first division as critical towards their Pro Rel plan. Like, I think that they can't, I don't know exactly, but I guess my sense is that the championship is too big for them right now to think that Pro Well works just between the championship and League One, and that having only those two leagues and movement between them isn't the right that's not really what we're like. If you're not aiming at the top, like if you can't say we reached the top division, what the hell is the point of Pro Rel, right? And I know, again, some of this is semantics because it is a name only that you are a first division league in America. In name only, meaning U.S. Soccer has sanctioned you as a first division men's outdoor soccer league, but if without Pro Rel, who cares? Right. But at the same time, we've heard people, and over the years covering these stories, I've heard club owners and executives say it matters when they go into the marketplace to sell sponsorships or season tickets or whatever, that they can say we're a first division soccer league. And this is what NESL versus US Soccer was all about. That lawsuit was all about the fact that NESL saw MLS and US Soccer colluding to keep NESL from meeting the standards that would allow them to ask for first division sanctioning. So if that league had to go to court to battle for this, obviously what USL is thinking is, all right, that's already been done. We don't have to go to court. US Soccer is not going to risk this lawsuit. So they are likely to give us sanctioning. And that D1 label, as small as it might be to you and me, especially without ProRel, it seems to matter a lot to them. Now, we've also heard owners say, if you do well in your market and you sell tickets and people get excited about your club, it doesn't matter what league you're in, right? You could be in the third division, but if you are doing the right things locally and connecting with your community, then you can sell tickets and be successful. But of course, that doesn't allow for the ambition of, we want a TV deal, right? We want to be bigger and better, which again, everything is predicated almost across the board, league focused wise, on being bigger and better.
Yeah, bigger and better indeed. And amongst the things that have come across through the comments was there actually was a Tony Scholes sighting.
Oh yeah.
There was a meeting earlier in the week. Someone shared it in the Morning Kicker on Discord, and there was a list of names of attendees, and he was just like a name amongst many. There was no quote, anything like that. It was like all these USL officials met here amongst those attendants, and then he was just a name. So he is stateside. We know that that much. So the first clue in our Carmen Sam search for Tony Scholes has led to our first sighting. Yeah. And it was a very minimal note on the guy who's tasked with setting all this up.
Yeah, that would be like, it would be good to hear from Tony. I'd like to get some comments directly from Mr. Scholes, and we will once again throw out the olive branch, I guess is what it is. I mean, we're putting up the signal. USL, please make Tony Scholes available. We would love to talk to him here on Morning Kick Around and get his sense of where things stand as they build. You know, I understand that there's a little bit of, we don't need to know how the sausage gets made, necessarily every detail of it, and they're not going to disclose that. And some of these are going to be confidential agreements and negotiations, and they're going to have to talk to these owners and say, this is what we can give you, this is what Premier will look like, in order to convince the owners to do it. I mean, the bottom line here is, how do you make this feel big time, feel professional, but not so increase the costs of operating a club so much that it becomes untenable, right? And we talked about, like, if you have the PLS, and the PLS is something you, or at least are trying to meet and as much as possible to avoid those waivers. And I know there's a debate about whether the standards should exist. I think that's insane to say standards shouldn't exist, but obviously what the standards are is of importance here. But if you're going by what we have currently, and you may be negotiating with US Soccer, but if you're going by what we have currently, some of these clubs are going to be spending millions of dollars to make this jump. And that's a big thing. That's not small when we're talking about this level of soccer in America.
I think one thing we could dig into that we haven't yet on Morning Kick Around is, what would it take to empower USSF to have that, what is it, like a monopoly power or something like that, that the MLB has, to where they could make those decrees and not be the subject of lawsuits? Because folks are saying, what a national federation if they can't make, decrees that everyone has to follow. So yeah, how do we make that happen?
Well, you're asking for, what you're imagining is a world in which U.S. Soccer has some sort of antitrust exemption.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do we got to figure out what is not going to happen?
That's not going to happen. There's no path to that. The NFL doesn't have an antitrust exemption. Baseball is the only thing, as far as I'm aware, baseball is the only sport that has an antitrust exemption. And that goes back to the fact that the game exists in the fabric of Americanness, as to why that was even given in the first place. And, I'm sure there are debates happening right now as to whether or not it's good that baseball has an antitrust exemption. No, I mean, and again, I think that's something that we need to remember. That's what U.S. Soccer is going to run into every single time they want to make a unilateral decision about anything. And they have to be careful, and they have to thread the needle and walk the line and not do so much that it feels like they are restricting trade, because then they will get sued. And not only will they get sued, they'll get dragged out, and now they're spending millions of dollars. And I'm not trying to absolve U.S. Soccer of any guilt or sin here, but let's think about the difficult position you're in as the organizer of soccer in America, with limited power, hemmed in by antitrust law. Like, that's just a thing. And we shouldn't want it a different way. Like, I understand that sometimes it means, Everybody thinks they have a better mousetrap. Everybody thinks they can reinvent the wheel when it comes to the sport. And I talk about this all the time. We are so league down in American soccer in the history of this game, when almost everywhere else the game has thrived, it is clubs that beget the league and not the other way around. Lute is saying that NFL does have an antitrust exemption. I know they've been sued over some of this in recent years. I'm not up on my details, so thanks to Lute if that's true. But again, the bottom line here is U.S. Soccer is a pretty weak organization, not because they want to be weak, but because the law says they're going to be weak, right? They operate under that. There's an act that created the organizations to run Olympic sports in America. That's under which auspices U.S. Soccer operates. But you can even argue that maybe they've gone beyond that, because is soccer, in international soccer, truly an Olympic sport? Nobody has challenged them on that. Right? I think Rocco might have wanted to. Somebody might want to step up and say, wait a second, U.S. Soccer can't dictate soccer in America, et cetera, et cetera. Right? That's something that could happen. And I think they always know it could happen. So again, thank you, Andrew, it's the Jones Act. You are looking at, there's another Jones Act that affects Puerto Rico, which is why my brain was scrambled. I don't know if it's the Jones Act. I think Jones Act involves, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Hatch? The Hatch Act something.
No, it's not the Hatch Act. That's about making money off of government stuff. Anyway, okay. Look, the bottom line is that U.S. Soccer can only go so far in what they dictate, right? And in that case, and Andrew's saying there are two Jones Acts. Thank you, Andrew. There's only so much they can do in dictating. What they do dictate is meant to protect the game. And again, we can argue about whether they do a good enough job of that, Rob. But I think a free-for-all is probably not bad. Look, man, I don't know. Somebody has to sanction these things. Somebody has to decide. And I saw there was a stat. Okay, this is from Lute. With ProRel, you don't need an antitrust exemption because you have entry and exit. Okay. I mean, I'd have to think that one through, is what I would have to do.
And then Marcus Rose has a comment here on the live show. If USSF has limited power, why do you always keep mentioning the PLS and we can't ignore it? Well, that's a tough.
You can hold on. You can absolutely ignore the PLS. The PLS is not about you can't have a professional league. You can have a professional league and do whatever you want with your professional league. But if you want to be sanctioned by the governing body of soccer in America that is connected to FIFA and have your players registered with FIFA and all this stuff that comes with that, then you follow their sanctioning, right? They do have power in that sense. They're operating under the auspices of FIFA. FIFA is ultimately where U.S. Soccer gets its power, because if U.S. Soccer is not attached to FIFA, who cares what U.S. Soccer says? Right? But what we're talking about being connected to the global game. So if FIFA recognizes U.S. Soccer as the power of or the organizer of soccer in America, then you kind of have to follow what U.S. Soccer does. Now, again, you can sue U.S. Soccer if you think they are crossing lines in terms of their antitrust activities, which is what Rocco did. And you know, again, like there's always this question of is the juice worth the squeeze in that regard? And everybody's supposed to come into the room to have these conversations to make these things work. It's not unilateral. There's not boss U.S. Soccer sitting in a room somewhere stroking a white cat saying, these are the standards. I don't know why he talks like that.
That's pretty foreboding a king of soccer there.
The king of soccer, the president of soccer. Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, great to see the conversations flowing on the USL Premier speculation videos. I mean, that's where we're at now with the kind of the drought of information coming from these officials on what's going on with these grand plans. We're kind of left to speculate. So I thank you for participating in the conversation. We'll see. And one last note, Jack Thornby, one of our ultras, commenting on the video. It's frustrating the debate continues to be about meeting PLS. One of the many that needs untangled before the USA meets its potential on the pitch. Well said, Jack. Thank you for getting in the comments there. We're not done for today. Take a quick breather, come right back and dot the map here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome back here, morning kick around, end of the week, and as we dot the map, we get morning kick around channel members dotted on here as we follow the American soccer expansion boom across the United States. We also are tracking our membership expansion here, and I see maybe in a bit of a self-aware move. We're zooming in on Puerto Rico to start the.
Can I promote something on my my Blue Sky account, which is where I that's where I live on social media for the most part. I do have an Instagram. Haven't been as active on that recently, but on my Blue Sky account, I am tracking every bit of soccer gear I see on the island of Puerto Rico during my 2-week visit here to see my in-laws and visit family and all those things. Because I mean, just for fun, I want to see how much the World Cup has impacted soccer's reach in Puerto Rico, which is not historically a soccer place. It's very much like the mainland. Soccer kind of fights for the scraps. You have basketball, and there's a vibrant local league here in Puerto Rico for basketball. Baseball, obviously, is a massive sport. Lots of great baseball players have come from the island of Puerto Rico. But I thought, hey, where is soccer? So follow me on Blue Sky. Davis, Jason, whatever. You'll find me. All right, Rob. All right, that's enough. I was gonna dot Puerto Rico too, just because I feel like I kind of should. But we'll move on and do the.
Are any of your in-laws MK Ultras? That's the big question.
Don't think so. If they are, they haven't told me. The Primos could be like, I know I have soccer fans among the Primos, but I haven't heard from them directly whether they support what I do here.
All right, we've got at least 2025 gift memberships handed out in this show alone. So if you have accepted a membership, put your location and the teams you support in the chat, and we'd love to add you to this ever densifying map of our ultras. But we'll start our dotting of the map in Bel Air, Maryland.
Bel Air, Maryland. Okay, I don't know
if I've ever. Big Lou 154. He is in Bel Air, Maryland.
Big. Ooh, is it all one word? We're doing Big Lou 154 like this. Is that
that's his screen name at least.
All right, and do we have teams for Big Lou?
Big Lou is a supporter teams. He's got the Annapolis Blues start.
Okay, Rob, your headroom act, your max headroom act is making it a little bit tough. Annapolis Blues, I heard that. All right, what else?
Oh man, sorry for anyone seeing me in choppy vision. Baltimore Blast.
Oh, that's an indoor team, Rob. That's one of the legacy indoor teams currently playing in, I believe, the Major Indoor Soccer League, or Missile.
Yeah, classic Missile Blast there for Big Lou. Baltimore also one of the cities mentioned a lot in the comments for our USL Premier speculation videos.
As a provocation, I threw out, is Baltimore part of the DC metropolitan area? And I got exactly the response I expected from people from Baltimore, which was, hell no, what are you talking about? Which I agree with. I'm not putting Baltimore in this. We were talking about population. So yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Went fishing is what that says. DC United, Sporting Jacks, and Tottenham round out Big Lou's team. So he's got a elite amateur team. He's got a legacy indoor team, his Major League Soccer team, Sporting Jacks. He says he has family down there, and of course he has his Premier League team in Hotspur. One thing I'd like to hear from the Ultra. Thoughts on the current Morning Kick Round logo or the one that we put on the kit? Which one do you prefer? Because Mitch slanderized it and said it was Spursy.
By the way, I always forget that we can add images to our dots. So if you have like a badge or an image that you want to put on your dot, that's the next level. Maybe we need to create an extra level of Ultra membership in order to get your badge on your dot. I don't know. We'll talk through what that might look like. All right, so that's Big Lou in Bel Air, Maryland. What else, Rob?
It looks like we've got a few in the chat here. Let's go to Lincoln, Nebraska. Brian J 1317.
Nice.
We need more Deddy out there. We got at least one.
I know my guy Matt, friend of mine, formerly part of the leadership of American Outlaws, is from Lincoln. I don't think he's an old. I got to check in with Mike. What, Matt? Why aren't you an ultra? What's going on? Aren't you my friend? Anyway, who is this? I'm sorry. My apologies.
So we have Brian Jay 13, and he's in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he is a supporter of Union Omaha and the Creighton Blue Jays.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Union. You're in Lincoln and you support Creighton? That's interesting. All right.
He is no Husker.
No, apparently not. He is not. Is it Blue Jays 2 words? I actually don't know. Is Creighton the Blue Jays or the Blue Jays? I don't know. Anyway, Creighton Blue Jays and Union Omaha for Brian J.
Random Rob fact: my mother went to University of Nebraska in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Random Jason fact: my grandfather attended the University of Nebraska briefly before moving to the University of Colorado. This is in the 30s. So yeah.
Wow. I don't think their paths crossed.
Probably not. My grandfather also attended high school in Lincoln briefly as well. All right. What else?
Mr. Bob is reminding us that there's actually been 30 gift memberships today. So we could get. So if you guys are in here, drop your locations. But we do have Greg 1987. He's in Lufkin, Lufkin.
Hold on. I'm being told by Brian J, that I need to change this. That these are the Creighton Blue Jays, like that, I guess. Okay, I'm sorry. Lufkin, Texas was for whom again?
Lufkin, Texas for Greg 1987.
All right, there's Lufkin. Where I got to zoom out to get a sense of where Lufkin is in Texas. Texas is big. Texas is a big place. So, is this Dallas area Texas? Is this Houston area Texas? Is this more out west? What are we talking about for Greg? I want to zoom out. Let's see. Where are we at? I see. No, we're in Eastern Texas. We're north of Dallas. I see Shreveport there behind the name. I used to live in Bossier City as a kid. All right, we got teams for Greg?
No teams for Greg.
Not yet.
Greg, add some teams if you want to there. I do see one name putting out their team. They are not channel members, so Anvil Echo, become an MK Ultra. We would gladly put you on the map here, but of our ones, it looks like Greg is the only one stepping up and dropping their pin here. And so, unless we get a couple here in the next couple minutes, we have David Avid from Longmont, Colorado, and he's a Detroit City fan. How about?
Okay, hold on. I'm adding a couple of teams to Greg's doc because he said Houston and Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund. By the way, buddy of mine, this is another weird Jason fact. Buddy of mine, who's not, as far as I know, not a massive soccer guy. He just he's like a board game guy, and he's got some other stuff he's into. He sends me a random text message, and he says, "Hey, Jason, if you could get any signed jersey from football, what would it be?" And I was like, "What?" It's a very big random question, and I was like, "Worldwide?" And he was like, "Well, international or club," which told me he didn't quite understand what I was saying. And then he sends me pictures of a signed Erling Haaland Dortmund jersey.
Oh.
And a signed Inter Miami Lionel Messi jersey that he apparently won via raffle. And I was like, wait, what's happening right now? What did you do? How did you do this? I got to follow up with him. Anyway, it's all right, Anvil Echo. We want everybody to be represented. We now know you are, we know you're watching, and we know you're in El Paso. That's a great place to be. And eventually you'll become an ultra, and you'll get your dot on the map, and you can be part of this. All right, who did, I'm sorry, I skipped over. David is in Longmont, Colorado.
Yeah, there were so many Davids. I must either be blind or dyslexic, but like it looked like David Avid getting all those Davids all jumbled up there. But I'd be interested to see or hear.
That's the bit. I think that's the bit. Yeah, that's the bit.
Is it? Confused Rob is the bit. Okay.
Confused Rob is the bit. Detroit City FC.
So Longmont, Colorado, that's another one you'll have to zoom out on for me to recognize where that's at. Is it in the plains or is that in the mountains?
I believe that is north of the city of Denver. Yes, it is. North.
So on the edge, living on the edge of the plains and the mountains there.
Yeah, that's Front Range stuff right there, Longmont. So Boulder, Denver. This is ancestral for Jason. This is where my grandparents are from. But I've never lived there myself, but I do love Denver. I'm
curious if David was a Detroiter who moved out there, or if the allure Detroit City was so strong that
could be that
from afar you became.
Could be that. Le Rouge, isn't that what they're called? What do you guys call the Detroit City FC? What is that?
You nailed it. Le Rouge and Gold is.
Well, those are the colors. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me zoom out. Get a little big picture look. We are across the Atlantic, so we are transatlantic. Got some UK and Ireland representation here. We got lots of dots in the contiguous United States. We've yet to make it. I think we have a couple of Canadians. Canadians are okay. Emmett's in here. All right, sweet. We got Emmett, who is in Lexington,
Kentucky. And interesting note: the owner of Lexington. Actually, no, I'm getting mine. It was actually Louisville's women's team. The owner said if something's going to happen if we don't get better attendance for the Racing Louisville games, which is an ominous note, but unrelated to Lexington, Kentucky. When Emmett, he likes Lexington Sporting Club and Atletico Madrid.
Okay, again, we're doing this like communicating with you guys through the chat. So if there's anything about your dot that you would like to have changed, your name, like how you're labeled, any of your clubs. Again, we'll talk about whether or not you have access to changing the image on your dot. Let us know in the Discord. That's usually the better place to do it. And Rob gathers all that information for us. But just because there's the lag. David says he was born and raised in the Mitten. So I think that's a Michigan reference right there.
It sure is. And for your Michigan Canada curiosities, the Gordie Howe Bridge finally opened.
Oh, did it?
After a lot of
held hostage. I thought it was being held hostage.
It was. At least they're letting the pedestrians across. It's been a big deal this week of walking and cycling. But I bring that up because I see we have a couple dots easterly, but I'm surprised we don't have anyone Windsor adjacent, especially if MLS Next Pro is expanding there.
Is that where the Toronto team is going to be playing in Windsor? Or am I wrong about that? What's happening in Windsor?
Oh, I can't remember which team they're associated with, but I know that there was a story recently about MLS Next Pro looking to explore a team in Windsor, or at least the southern Ontario area.
I remember what it is. The Toronto FC MLS Next Pro entry is moving to Barrie. Actually, they're going to be able to they have a little stadium in Barrie, Ontario. Barrie? What's it called?
Barrie. I was just saying it weird. That's,
you don't actually
not giving any local context at all.
I see.
Yeah, Toronto FC 2 Barrie, Ontario is what we're hearing. So gonna have on our radar, but right across the map. And in Detroit, there's certain little places where you can be both east, west, south, and north of Canada from Michigan all at the same time, which is fun little geography for our map lovers out there.
Yeah. Windsor was supposed to get a CPL club, but nothing has come of it, says our guy, American Groundhopper. So, yeah.
It would be interesting because folks like in the early days, the amateur FC, they played a number of exhibition games against Windsor-based clubs. So it'd be interesting if some from that. But does anyone else want to throw their location in here, or are we done for the day? We'll give it another minute or so if you guys want to throw your location in. We'd love to plop another dot on the map. But
hold on. Since we have added some dots, and it is tradition here on Morning Kick Around to do it, and I need to stop moving things around so Jenny can find them later. I was going to let it be a full clang, but that's a long clang. It's a lot of clang. You put that much clang. This baby can hold so much clang is what I've got here on the show today.
The pro rel, or the clanging quantity of clangs is limitless, as they say. But I think that about wraps up our week. Pablo, yes, we did talk about SAFC just a little bit there, that they're about the chances of premiere, but kind of put a thing out there. We'll have to see with the TV deal and what kind of support they get. But I think that's all kind of connected to having to pay that fine for not expanding into Major League Soccer.
Right,
so
right.
they have the ability to expand to meet those premier PLS standards. So they're definitely in the maybe mix for that premier list.
I definitely think it's interesting. As I said, interesting that they're framing it as we need to see what USL is offering is essentially the message. And as you said, Rob, there is the fine hanging over the San Antonio Spurs organization, who owns San Antonio FC, from the failed MLS bid. And you were referencing, we talked about this story. I don't know if it was Monday or last week, Bear County and all of this. And I remember covering this on my old radio show, the judge of Bear County being very upset, feeling like he was lied to by the powers that be, by MLS, as a matter of fact, if you go back in the archives and look at this. And so Bear County is not happy with the way things played out, with Austin getting a team and then MLS moving on. So could there be something else there? And is San Antonio truly invested? Is the money behind San Antonio really there for them to level up into D1 and whatever that takes? And again, it might not be a 15,000 seat stadium. They might not need that, depending on waivers and PLS standards changing, but there will definitely be more money to be spent if you go into the first division.
They may have already done this and I didn't see it, but I saw in the comments about San Antonio and their connection to the Spurs. Like Wemby, I'll just say that way. One of the most famous basketball players on the planet right? Are they getting him in front of the camera? And he's also like soccer. I've seen him doing clips during the World Cup and stuff like that. Why don't they have Wemby out in front of SAFC? And you feel like that could garner some heat.
Why have they not crossed those streams yet? That's a very good question. Yeah. Have you seen?
Because not many USL teams have that kind of firepower, resources, and especially like the nous of the local market more than San Antonio.
Absolutely. He knows the game. He loves the game. He's French. He's super tall. He's really good at basketball. He lost in the finals. He's why wouldn't you be doing that? Is a good question. And maybe they just can't get it to make it worth his while. I do not know.
Yeah, they haven't sold him on the American domestic game, perhaps, but that'd be interesting to see. It seems like a quiver in their arsenal could be used there. But that's probably the end of the show here. And thank you, everyone, for contributing. Thank you for getting all the guest memberships. And for those who are new, can we post a new Discord link to get some of the new members in the mix, Jason?
I will definitely do that. Hit up the Discord. For all things American soccer, all kinds of conversations. There's gear trading. There's lower division club chat, building things, stories popping up all over the place. Discussions about things like PLS and Pro-Rel and all of that. If you love that stuff, then be an ultra, and I'll post the link, and you can jump into the Discord.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll be Monday to further detail and the map of the expanding American soccer landscape. Until then, everyone, be safe, remain brave, and enjoy soccer.